Today on the Riff, Jeremy sits down with Preston Ulmer. They get to talk about what spiritual formation in 2023 looks like for North Pointers. A lot of new things are ahead when it comes to getting involved with meaningful community here at North Point. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Riff listeners. Let me introduce you to someone named Preston who has trimmed his beard.
I have.
And is related to the Preston with a longer beard. So Preston,
Faintly.
Congratulations.
On the trimmed beard.
Well, no, on the face. It's not near as something that I would have hidden as long as you had hidden.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
It's a face that you should be proud of.
Well, thank you.
Well,
thank
very good. Do you think you're going to grow the beard back?
I don't know. It all depends on what Lisa wants.
Yeah?
Yeah. I miss the beard. It's colder. My chin's colder.
No, absolutely.
You know, and I didn't realize I have a little mole right here, but that's fine.
No.
Because I haven't seen my chin in a while.
How many years has it been since you've had a naked face?
Oh, like no hair?
Yeah.
Probably a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, probably 10 years.
Wow.
I don't even know what I'd look like.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, we're a little closer to know what you look like. Yeah. And you know what? You look great.
Thanks.
So,
Thanks.
Welcome. And I want to welcome our Riff listeners. And we want to say Happy New Year to those of you who are joining us. This is the first episode of 2023. The 75th episode is what our producers have instructed us. 75th episode of The Riff.
And our sponsors are?
Well, currently, we've not yet had an offer that we're going to entertain.
Okay. Yeah. They come in a
be
little
honest,
low.
we haven't had an offer.
Okay.
Yes. But I would say our market is growing. Yes. And that's why if you're watching, you might want to put the closed captioning on Espanol because we have some people who have started logging in from Spain.
Not just part of Spain, all of Spain.
Yeah.
As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell.
Yeah.
We know that Spain is now covered on our world map. So, so I just, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Humbled a little bit to feel like what started as a humble venture in a studio in an old Baptist building has now become an international, just a place of spiritual formation and thought. And people ask me sometimes, do you remember what it was like to record in a studio in the Dream Center? And I'm like, man, like it was yesterday.
Yes.
But won't he though? Isn't that
he will. I feel gracias. Yes. I feel so grateful.
I love it.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing with your loved ones in Spain, or even if you're still part of our original listening audience here in the
or if you're not listening anymore from Spain.
Yeah.
Thank you for that time.
No, it was,
great.
And not that you would even hear our thanks, but I want you to know that you are thanked. So, Preston, lots happened since you were a guest with us in our last, our last time. Is this your third time on the show? Is it a show?
I was back in the humble beginnings,
yeah.
Jeremy. Yeah. I maybe twice. I know once for sure.
Was it memorable?
Before.
I mean, so you're like, I think I've been here. I've been here a couple of times.
The first time wouldn't have been.
I feel like that's what you start saying if it's been 7 or 8. But if it's 1 or 2, that's cool though.
Oh yeah, first time we talked about neighboring.
Yeah.
And doubts and those sort of things. I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was memorable. If there was a time before that, I don't remember that.
You know what would be more humbling is if we asked our listeners.
Oh, yeah.
So
let's not.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
But today I want to talk about spiritual formation. In the last quarter of 2022, we made some shifts that we felt are mission critical for the organization. One of them is it relates to our vision. Our vision is to create a safe environment for people to find and follow Jesus. And while both the elements of finding Jesus, having an encounter with Jesus where you feel him talking to you and drawing him into a relationship, that's been huge to North Point. It's also important that we would follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we decided to do is let's staff accordingly. Let's at least start the staffing accordingly. Let's, for the first time in the 10 years that I've been here, have a staff position where their main tasks will consist of creating pathways opportunities for us as a church and North Pointers to start thinking about following Jesus. Yeah. And in doing so, you were the first conversation that we had, because that's something that we've been talking for years. Yeah. One of the things that is a passion to you is helping people follow Jesus in spiritual formation. So today, I want to talk to you about spiritual formation. We'll just see how this goes. But let's start with this idea: is why is it important for a church, specifically North Point, to have both elements, finding and following? What does that mean to you?
Finding and following. Well, it's what drew us to North Point.
Okay.
Was the safe place piece, right? Because we came from Denver, where we're church planting, and it was like all about creating a safe place. So that's a safe place for the addict, a safe place for the skeptic, all of that. Finding Jesus, to me, Jeremy, means it's the awareness of God. It starts there, right? That you would have an awareness of God. Who is God? What does God look like? This is Sunday services are really helpful for that, right? For the kids as well.
And Saturdays at Nixon Springfield.
Yeah, that's right. Saturday and Saturdays and Sunday weekend services.
Oh, boom.
Weekend. It's helpful for the awareness piece.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, we found, or rediscovered in the Midwest, right? You've rediscovered a new, probably more correct version of God. And then in following, it's like, okay, what do I do now? Because Jesus isn't with us right now. I mean, I know people listen to this are like, no, but he's with us in spirit. Yeah.
Theologically, yes, but experientially.
He's not. I've never woken up, and I would freak out if I did. I've never woken up and Jesus been like, hey, we're going to have a great day today, Preston.
You just gave me an idea. It will involve a costume and me getting into your house before you wake up, but that would be fun.
Yes.
So you don't have the Jesus with skin on walking into your life on a day-to-day and show you practical next steps of how to follow.
But following is what it means to be an apprentice or a disciple of Jesus. You have to follow.
Okay.
So then the question is, where? What is he doing, right? Those sort of things. So spiritual formation, it's not a Christian term. It's an old term that no matter where someone comes from, what worldview or religion, the term, it's kind of like love. Like, how do you define love? You're like, well, I don't know. People say it's a secondhand emotion. Some people, right? Whatever it is.
Tina Turner says that actually.
Yeah. Oh, that was her?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought I came up with that.
We'll have it in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. The song.
Yeah.
But spiritual formation, it's this process of making progress to being formed as something other than yourself. Okay? That's spiritual formation. So we're always being formed by the stories we believe, the habits we have, and by the relationships in our lives. Those three pieces are always...
The stories we believe.
The
habits we form, the relationships we have.
That's right. Okay. Those three pieces are always forming us. Good, bad, unintentional, intentional. I mean, that's all up for debate, but they're always forming us. So in North Point, to find and follow Jesus is to reframe the stories we believe, right, into more true stories. It's to create community that's not just one-off relationships. It's the right type of community and practices that are helping our habits be something that would form us into following Jesus. So I know people are opposed to behavior, but I would say grace is not opposed to effort, it's opposed to earning. And part of formation is this practice.
Okay, break that down for me. I love that. Okay, so grace is not opposed to effort,
right?
But it goes against the idea of earning. What does that mean?
That we are saved by grace. I mean, this would be a core Christian doctrine, no matter what stream you come from. We're saved by grace, okay? There's nothing we did to be offered the love and grace of God.
Okay.
That's all that God did. But grace forms us in a way that our habits and our practices appreciate that gift now. Okay? It's like, it's anytime you receive love from someone, especially if you're talking to like a married couple that, let's say one spouse cheated on the other, and the spouse that was faithful offered grace and said, I love you. Then the other spouse says, okay, out of appreciation and love, it's faithfulness, right? Faithfulness. It's offered out of the grace they've received. So grace is not opposed to effort. Effort actually is a product of a really robust grace, but it's opposed to earning.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so at North Point, if some, one of the things that people have said a felt value at North Point is no matter where you are, what you've done, there's this sense of there's a lack of judgment. For the most part, that you would say, okay, awesome. Jesus loves you the way you are. We think your next step in following him is surrendering your life and then going public with water baptism. Yeah. Why is it important then that we then follow or make behavioral changes? So you're saying it is important. It should be a natural response to this relationship.
Well, baptism is a behavior.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe a one-off behavior. It's a behavior.
Yeah.
Anytime, that's why I think the term formation, spiritual formation, is better than, it's going to sound like such heresy, is better than, I know, on this podcast.
If you're on Cult Watch, this is the time to pay attention. And I'm wildly interested in what you're about to say. Okay. I have no idea.
Well, I feel like it's not going to be as offensive as you hope it was. But I think spiritual formation is a better term than discipleship.
Watch your mouth.
I know, the D word, discipleship. Okay.
Spiritual formation is better than discipleship. Why?
Because discipleship is this, what we get into when we get into discipleship is, what are the things that a disciple does? Okay, that's discipleship. It's apprenticeship. Again, these aren't intrinsically Christian words. These are words that people have used all throughout history. Now, as Christians, we're like, these are our words, but it's really not. But discipleship is this thing that you do. You follow the rabbi, right? You're a disciple of the rabbi. And Jesus had disciples, and they practiced, and they did that. Formation is who you're becoming, and out of who you're becoming, the things that you do.
Okay.
That's why the stories you believe, and people are leaning into mental health more now than ever, the stories you believe are so pivotal for your transformation. This is why talking about the gospel, sharing the gospel, weekend experiences, the awareness of God, reframing what we thought we knew, all of that is actually crucial, not to changing your behavior, if you're just after changing your behavior. It's crucial to reframing what you believe, and then new habits form out of that. And again, you just do any example in life, even outside church, and you're like, yeah, when I believe a new story, or I realize something that's better, Dallas Willard called it the good life. He said, all spiritual formation points you towards the good life. So it's always reframing, there's a better way of living out there.
Yeah. Okay, so as I'm hearing this and processing, what I'm hearing is that your disciplines, your discipleship, is a part of your spiritual formation.
Yeah.
But it is not your spiritual formation. Because what I do certainly is a valid part and alignment of who I'm becoming. So with this thought is, you can have all the spiritual disciplines without being someone who's being transformed spiritually.
Yes. We know those people.
Yeah.
They don't listen to this podcast.
Give us names.
They don't listen to this podcast. But anyone listening to this podcast knows that person.
Yeah. Someone who's been in church and they're reading their Bible.
Yes.
They're giving a 10% of their financial income. Yes. And they're still mean as a rattlesnake.
That's right.
They're still judgmental.
Right. And they would consider themselves a disciple of Jesus. Now, that might be up for debate as between them and the God, but are they deeply spiritually formed?
What does it mean to be transformed? What are some of those formations? What does that mean?
Okay.
More than discipleship.
Well,
because I think I could think of a time in my life where this describes me real well.
Yeah. Well, I would say if we go back, let's just go back to those three. Okay. The three ways we're unintentionally formed, right, would be the stories, and then it would be our relationships and
our habits.
Habits. Thank you. So then what we're trying to do now, if we look at Jesus, how did he form people? Just look at the stories he told. He did give commands, right? He said, you've heard it said, but I say unto you, and all stuff. But when he told stories, he didn't say, now here's the three things you have to do from here. He just said, and the least shall be first. And you're kind of stuck with this. What did that do inside? Right? Or he tells a story about prodigal son. Or he tells a story about a lost coin. in his stories, it's because what he's saying is he's going, this is reality. This is more real. And when you realize the things I believe are changing, they're not just changing my mind, they're changing my heart. I'm being transformed. So then I will now respond to who I consider least with first, and I'll give more finances to them.
Yeah.
I will spend more time with them, right? That someone I'd consider lost, not because Jesus said, and here's the commandment, but because he told the story, reframed it. Now someone I consider lost would be, oh, you know what? I should give a lot of attention to them.
Yeah.
That's why at North Point, finding and following Jesus, the finding part can't be, we can't ignore that just to pursue the following, nor can we ignore the following to pursue, because finding God, which I love the phrase, a Jesus-looking God, finding a Jesus-looking God is like, oh, well, that's drastically gonna change the way I follow him. So what it looks like in practice is gonna be different. It still allows North Point to be North Point. It's the judge-free zone. It's the gym. You can come, you start your workout wherever, okay? That if you've not been to the gym, I mean, this is coming out in this first podcast, 2023.
Yeah.
People might be listening to this on the treadmill. I hope I'm one of those people, okay?
Yeah.
But
I for sure will be.
yeah, that's going to be me. Or
I actually will usually watch crime documentaries on the treadmill. Okay.
Well, now you're going to listen to this one. Yeah. But when you go to a gym, the goal isn't how do you become like Arnold Schwarzenegger. The goal is how do I become a steward of my body? How do I do that? And you're going to be going to the gym for different reasons. Too high of cholesterol, maybe you're getting married, you want to look good on the beach, whatever, okay? You go for different reasons. It's this spiritual formation's very similar, that you can start and you need to start slow. It's the difference between it's training. You're training. You're not just trying. And maybe let me parse that out a little bit. Like if I told Piper, my daughter, if I told her, I want you to play Mozart on the piano. She plays the piano, but she can't play Mozart, right? I want you to do it in D minor. She's going to be like, I don't know. And if I'm like, try harder, Piper, try. Come on, try. She's not going to do it. If she trains, yeah. And it's like, hey, every other day at this time, we're going to practice the piano for 20 minutes. We're just going to practice. The time will come where she could play Mozart in D minor. It's always going to be a challenge, but now she has the capability to do it. Spiritual formation's that. Yeah. A lot of religion is try harder. Spiritual formation is God changing your mind about him? How do you want to respond? Let's train together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of things I think are helpful for us to process. And then I want to talk about what do we anticipate in this role. But more practical than that is for the user. What are some things we can see down the pipe with spiritual formation? But Jesus came to a group of people who were very well disciplined. Matter of fact, more disciplined than even some of the most spiritual people that we know, or church people that we know. The religious leaders of the day, discipline was not their weak point. They were phenomenal at it. They were diligent at it. And Jesus spoke to a transformation to the most religiously disciplined people there. Mm-hmm. And so clearly for us is those habits, for those who've been following Jesus a long time, some of these spiritual habits, while they are helpful habits, it's very possible by looking at scripture that we are not having a formed life after Jesus just because we're doing healthy habits. It's also possible to be wildly excited about the story of Jesus and the acceptance of Jesus, but limit our ability to reflect him and receive from him because we don't put any habits into play.
That's right.
So sometimes at North Point we can get, and so I'm a kind of straw man here. So sometimes as a North Pointer, a dangerous tendency for me to have is we don't want to be one of those churches that have all these stuffy people that do all the religious things, but they're not being formed in a loving, gracious way. Right. And while that's true, I also don't want to be the church that is limiting the potential of those who are exposed and excited about the calling of Jesus in their life, but they don't have handles to become more like him.
That's right. Totally.
And so that's why we're saying this is the time. And now we've got great anecdotal examples of many North Pointers who are growing in their faith, becoming more Jesus-like to those around them in our community. But we want it to be intentional to not grow, that there would be so many options to grow, to be more like him, including some of these habits, but transformation, that you would have to say, if you're at North Point, you would have to say, I choose not to.
Right.
Like Robert Woodruff was the president of Coca-Cola back when they really took off, and his mission was, my desire. We can't make people like Coke, but our mission is to put a can of Coke within arm's reach of every desire in the world.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're commissioning this project is. We can't make people grow in their faith, but what we can do is put tools within arm's reach of desire. So talk to us about what could that look like? What are some of the things that, I know this is a brand new role, and so it's not like, all rolled out yet, but there are some things, and I don't know if your opportunity even early on to tell us about, kind of tease us with something called Jesus XP that's coming out this spring, in the next month and a half.
So I totally agree. And how do we get in arm's reach? Okay, here's, let me talk about Jesus XP for a second. Jesus XP stands for the Jesus experience, right? How do you experience Jesus? And it is key when we say, how do we follow Jesus? Because for me, in my skeptical mind, I'm like, he's not, now, yes, theologically, he's with us. He's not walking with me, right? He's not driving my car with me. He's not, so how do we do that? Jesus XP is centered on the Gospels and Acts. So really the life and ministry of Jesus.
First 4 books of the Bible.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it's just going Gospels and Acts, Gospels and Acts. What it does is it says, hey, what if you read together in community? Because remember, what we're trying to do is through teaching, community, and practice. Those, if we can get those 3 things, those are, and I guess for the person who's opposed to the word discipline, let's use the word rhythms. If we can get those rhythms in our life, okay?
Yeah, that's like marketing right there.
Yeah, well, hey, healthy rhythms.
That's just putting lipstick on a pig.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
No, but I like the pig. I'm a pork fan.
I like lipstick, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll park that. Maybe in their next episode, let's dive into that. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So if we were to say, okay, together, you go Jesus XP groups, JXP groups, that once a week for 8 weeks, that you're just going through a book of the Bible, or a book of the Gospels. Okay. So just go through one book. So let's take Luke as an example.
Which I think we're going to.
I think we are. Yes. It's a little teaser.
Subject to change, but that's the plan right now.
But if they're like, okay, hey, this week we're reading Luke chapter 3. Well, in their JXP packet, there's a chapter summary. It's not a commentary, but the work's been done from a commentary, right? It's a chapter summary that it's saying things like, did you notice this? When Jesus did this, why do you think he would be doing this? And it was probably important to that time. And it's a chapter summary that they can read together as a group. And then there's 3 questions, just guiding questions at the end of the summary, and then a suggested practice out of the text.
Okay.
As you're following Jesus.
Is that a fancy word for homework?
Well, that's the lipstick on pig.
Okay.
It's the teaser word, right?
Yeah,
Suggested practice.
Ooh, I hate homework, but suggested practices, yes, please.
Yes, all day long. But together in community,
okay,
that they're learning about Jesus. It's Jesus-centric, okay? It's following Jesus. And it's not, and the practices, like let me give you an example. If you notice in some of the Gospels, Jesus is not hurried. He's just not hurried. I mean, there's one time, I forget who it was, someone was asked, summarize Jesus in one word. And he said, unhurried. Okay. But Jesus is not hurried.
I think that was me.
Yeah. Okay. That was a theologian.
Yeah. So me.
Dr. Johnson.
Yeah. That was it.
So he's not hurried. One of the suggested practices, don't scroll on your phone this week. Try it. Just try it. And it's not
now
saying,
you're meddling, preacher.
Now listen.
Get into my business.
It's not saying get rid of social media platforms. What it's saying is like, what would happen to your anxiety if you just didn't scroll? So you wake up, no scrolling. You go to bed without scrolling. And it's
You'd be like, hey, you'd see the people around you, like, you're the people in the family picture that I have.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
I recognize you.
Yeah. Now, the goal isn't to be like, hey, stop scrolling. No, that's for you as you follow Jesus.
Yeah.
So trying to show it's a good life. It's a better life.
Yeah.
And it's not saying, now, next week's practice is in addition to last week's and just build up all these things. And what it's trying to do is give handles to, wow, I think this is a better way to live. It's a better way. So in as we follow Jesus, JXP groups still do classes, okay? But what if we launched classes I don't know, somewhere after Easter when people realize there's practical help for me out there and classes are 4 weeks and I can be plugged in community and reframe thought. And yeah, that's just some of the teasers.
So I love that idea with Jesus XP, which is probably some of the most helpful elements of other formative groups or studies is let's look at what Jesus did. Let's talk about it from our perspective in community.
That's it.
And now let's apply it.
Yeah.
Let's build the muscles that Jesus demonstrated, right? And so, that would be available. I mean, we're going to have, I don't know, 70, 75 of those,
awesome.
Something like that. We're just going to have options for people where they could say, hey, I think I can join one. And it's 8 weeks, not a life commitment. What about someone who says, hey, I'd like to join one, but I'd like to do it with my crew. Is there opportunity for them to lead one?
Yep. So
get trained, all that kind of stuff?
Just a few weeks after this podcast comes out, we'll have training. So they can go on our website, they can sign up for the training, or we'll have it
to
in
lead
the,
one.
Yeah, that's right. We can even have it in the notes. Right, Justin? We can have it in the notes. Yep, we'll have it in the notes.
You're not supposed to name our producers. I'm trying to make it look like we have this huge deal, not a co-host of the Riff.
Well, we
also
are
producing.
in Spain. Parts of Spain, but yeah.
So,
so we'll have it in the notes. They can register.
Okay.
There's 2
Is it like
trainings.
a 6-week class to train to learn how to do this?
No, it's like a 1 dinner. We'll provide dinner.
So even if I'm not interested in training, do you know what you're serving?
Yeah, probably Chipotle. If you email suggestions and it gets you there, probably Chipotle.
Yeah.
So we'll have a training, walk you through. And, let me say this too. If someone is like, I want to do something like that, but my group of friends or the people I'm in community with, I don't know if they're going to read a chapter of the Bible together a week, right? I mean, we're not together. You read the paragraph together, but we actually have JXP cards that they're conversation starters.
Okay.
So if you're like, yeah, I naturally get together with people, or I can get together once a week and we'll just be like, hey, we're just gonna have a conversation around, we're gonna randomly pick out of the deck, pick a card, and and some of them are really funny and lighthearted, but they're always gonna lead you towards more meaningful conversations. Regardless of where you're at with your friend group, you plus one other person at least can start a JXP group.
I love that.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one example of one thing, and one of the role that you are leading. It doesn't mean, hey, we're going to delegate all spiritual formation to Preston. So Preston, you carry the weight of all this, and we'll do everything else. Just add this. But it's integrating, working with our team, and saying, okay, how can we be a church that has formation and following Jesus as a very natural expression of who we are. And so Jesus XP is a great example of it. What are some of the other kind of things you're thinking about as you're brand new in this role that you're thinking, hey, these are some of the kind of things we can do? What does that look like? Resources or types of things that help us grow?
Yeah. So we have, like classes, but the classes to be highly practical, because here's what we don't want when we're talking about spiritual formation. We don't want to delegate spirituality to one part of our life, right? Being healthy with your finances or your marriage being healthy, your social aspect, how you show up at work, how you show up in your marriage, all of that actually is your spiritual formation.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening to this and they're like, I want to get strong spiritually, but I don't want it to affect the other parts, let that be. It's like, well, now we're talking about that whole idea of I can be really religious because that's one part of my life. Yeah. And the other parts of my life can just stay starving.
So true spirituality is finding avenues for Jesus' reflection in every area of life.
Yeah, and you can just add to the end of it like Jesus. Okay,
yeah,
it's
good. So working like Jesus, roommating like Jesus.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so classes are going to revolve around. They're going to be very practical. Yeah, they're going to be like, hey, this is how I show up in the world, right?
Resources for those who need help as parents or just individually, inspiration or alignment.
That's right.
Yeah.
Counseling services, we're going to have all those listed, right? Because we know as you're being formed, there is a journey inward for a lot of people.
Would you like
some water? We don't have any, but I have coffee here. But thank you.
Well, hey, we do have sponsorship opportunity. I could imagine a label right there, but keep going.
Aquafina, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Smart water.
And they are, I'm sure. But keep going.
So we do have those different sorts of resources. Right Now Media, we're going to continue to have Right Now Media, but we're going to have suggested like, hey, if you're dealing with this, the whole website will probably do something that will be, I don't know what the URL will be, and I do think it's important, but it'd be something like notjustsundays.com. Something
Now, here's
like
the deal.
that.
Someone out there's probably listening, just bought it and now is going to try and sell it to us
we'll buy it, but
for a
we'll buy
lot
it before,
more.
We'll buy it before this comes out.
Okay, let's put in the show notes, edit this part out, that we will not release that until we have purchased it for a cheap price. Keep going.
So what we're trying to do is just arm's reach. Make it so that you can be like wherever you're at. And here's what we know. As important as it is to come together on the weekends, because I think it's vitally important. There is a Monday through Sunday that you don't show up on the weekends because of whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're disconnected from North Point or that you're not a North Pointer. So I just see it as like a great challenge to be like, hey, how are we going to resource you when you're traveling? How are we going to resource so that you could continue to be formed and you're not alone? You're not alone. You're not alone.
My dream as a pastor in North Point is for this to be a place where anyone could show up and they hear Jesus talking to them.
Yeah.
That we also would be people who have made a decision, who are there, who are growing in our faith and becoming more like Jesus and more aware of his activity in our lives and in the lives of those around us, that we would be on mission with him in these ways. And I am so excited, not that we've not been a church about finding and following Jesus, but I feel like we're going to be better resourced, prepared, organized to put following Jesus in an arm's reach of people's desire more than ever. And one of my new commitments is to say, okay, let me platform that. Let me talk about that more. And so one of the things we're talking about is as you create the direction of some of these resources, that it'll be a handle for me to naturally direct people towards that. So it's going to be a great journey. Preston, I know that this is a passion that you've been running with for years, and I'm thrilled that this is a season that's lined up where we can lead in this way. So thank you for leading the charge. Those of you who are there and this resonates with you and you're interested, contact Preston, contact myself. I know that there are always meetings going on and plannings going on and opportunities to use your gifts out there as well. And if you're here as a North Pointer and you're wanting to follow Jesus, but you find that you've got some things blocking you, man, let's lean in. Let's figure out how we can help resource you so that we can reflect him in every area possible. So, hey, we're out of time for this podcast.
Yep.
We are going to have you back, Preston.
Good.
We're excited about this. And we want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Again, Happy New Year. This is a great opportunity for us to live aspirationally and say, okay, God, what could this year look like if we're aware and dependent upon you throughout the year? So have a great week. And for those listening in Spain, Auf Wiedersehen.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.